By now, you've all probably seen that Elon Musk has smoked a blunt on the Joe Rogan podcast, but what the media fixated on was literally the least interesting part of the podcast. Everything else of that, like 3 hour podcast, was condensed down to 10 seconds up in smoke by the media. But Elon Musk talked about a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to talk about because nobody else is talking about it. He talked about AI, the simulation, the idea that we're in a simulation. He talked about his boring company, some other ideas he has for planes, and a bunch of other little stuff that we'll get into. But let's start off with the boring company because that's something some people know about. Some people really don't know a lot about it. But basically, the boring company is this idea Elon Musk has had for a long time that he developed pretty quickly, actually. Where when he was sitting in LA traffic, he thought of the idea of, hey, why don't we have tunnels where cars go down into, we go under shit, and we go on these, maybe we just kind of go on trains that are super fast or super underground that you can go on, and that's how we get to places, we get to major cities. So the interesting point he made actually in the podcast, for me was that um, flying cars are actually not going to happen. It's actually best to go under rather than above ground, because above ground you're more limited than you're actually then going underground. I think he said like you can go further underground than you can above ground for transportation. Because
Well,
flying cars would be too loud and practicalities would be like crazy.
well, the thing with the Boring Company is too, because I know you mentioned this in the podcast, was that the Boring Company was originally an idea that was from a Mel Brooks movie from like Spaceballs, where they had a company that sold like one thing at one time. I
Oh
kind of found
yeah.
that was like pretty interesting. And their products on there, like they only really made two or three to my knowledge. They had a flamethrower, an overpriced extinguisher, like fire extinguisher that you can buy for the flamethrower, but he even recommends like you not do that in like a baseball cap. And he even says in there that they're like, this is not a flamethrower. I don't know why you'd want to buy this. And it's that kind of cheeky humor, but like what you mentioned with the underground stuff, because just like thinking about it, I don't know about this than me, but I see some problems with that. Like one with underground things you have to worry about would be like dealing with possibly polluting like water sources and like the sewer. I think he didn't really. No one really questioned him on that. And I think that would have been an interesting thing. And just like the price, because like the air you can kind of like fly in there, but like underwater, I think it's underground. You have to go and like dig everything out. You have to dig these tunnels, and you have to have like structural integrity. And the further you go underground, like the more weight you're going to have to go and support, kind of.
That's true.
Like he didn't really mention it. It's an interesting idea. We've already had certain like subways, I guess, and you're in like England they call it the underground, but like
The tube.
they haven't really done that much with it. But there's a lot of issues too. You have to deal with like at least like with living underground. I don't know like how they deal with this. I know like in basements you'll get like radon that pops up a lot of times in there, and it's something to think about. I
I
think it
don't
is.
think it's that big of a problem though. I mean, he's already developed some tunnels, and we've done tunnels before. It's just nobody's doing it the way he wants to do, which is you can take a car down under and hop on like a super fast train basically and zip down and go quickly and then come back out. Like, that's the main thing. I mean, tunnels are very practical and they can happen. It's just, there's obviously problems you got to deal with, but we know how to deal with them. It's just that he wants to do it where he kind of he's not. That's the thing about Elon's like it's kind of like Apple. Like he's not the first to do it. He's not inventing. I mean, he's inventing some stuff, like definitely, but he's mostly innovating or pushing things a lot further than they have been before. With the tunnels, you can take your car on a platform and zip along.
Well, yeah, that's true. You could do that, but like he mentions, like he wants to have these little things. They're not going to be. It's not going to be like a subway third rail. So like I'm kind of wondering how they'll be propelled. Like, will there be a battery for each of these like subway cars? And if so, that's going to be like technology right now is really far behind where it should be. It needs to be improved. You're already seeing problems with the cars, and it's like a major thing too. If you want to talk about solar power, the reason that hasn't taken off as much as it has is because like batteries are really the limiting factor.
Oh yeah.
They're just not nearly as efficient of like holding charges. And what he's suggesting, like, if it's not going to have some sort of like underneath it, which I looked on the Boring Company, they didn't really mention too much about this yet. Like, it's going to need to have some sort of like battery on there. If it does, like a thing at the bottom that go along with the train, which like not the train, the whatever he wants to call it, the loop. It's like this weird, not really train thing. It's like kind of a car on rails, from what I understand. And
Mm.
like I can see why he wants to do that because he's all into this like electric stuff. He just like really hates like for that interview, he really hates like gasoline and diesel power. He's really against that. Like obviously, the guy who invented Tesla is probably not going to be too big of a fan of like regular like internal combustion engines, even though he owns like a Porsche and a Model T.
Oh, he doesn't own
Or
the.
no,
I don't think he owns a Porsche, or does he? He was kind of confusing in the way he
was it
said
the
it.
Porsche?
I think he said he only owns two
Maybe
cars
it's
now.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, well,
Well, I think it was
no,
two
no,
regular cars.
no. He used to own a Porsche, he said, but he now owns just two cars: a Tesla and a Jaguar E-Type. Which I knew because when he said he owns two cars, and Joe Rogan said the Tesla and the Jaguar. And when he said the Jaguar, I knew immediately it's gotta be an E-Type. It's gotta be because that
No,
car
no,
is very
no.
much like how a Tesla looks. The way it's very clean and modern and style, the way it's stylized, and yeah, that's what he has.
Like I think in the video though, I thought he like a friend gave it to him, and like he had a Model T, and it wasn't a Porsche. That was the Porsche. I remember that correctly. But Elon Musk, he had like a Model T and an E-Type. I do remember that. That was his internal
Mm,
combustion engine car. He probably has a bunch of other like electric cars, but like that's what he has for that. But I do think that like that's something that we got to consider though, because I know traffic. Like I live around the Pittsburgh area, and like that's traffic in that area is pretty bad. But I know it's places like New York and like Baltimore,
L.A.
Washington, LA, yeah, that's where he lives. Like all these places have like completely terrible traffic issues, and they do need to do something. I think underground probably wouldn't be too bad an idea for those places. And like, I mean, I don't think underground's a bad idea, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as he makes it out in that interview. Like he's kind of, and he might be doing that as a way to go and mitigate whatever damage he anticipated him getting from the interviews. Whenever you talk as a public figure, you're going to have like damage control because they'll take something out of context, and they did with
Yeah.
the marijuana smoking. But, that's pretty stupid on his part to go and do that, even if it's legal in like California, because it's not legal state like federally, and he has like government contracts, and now they're going into all that nonsense because of SpaceX. But like, I do think that we need to improve our as it goes with trains and that sort of thing, because like they haven't really improved too much. Like in Japan, they have like the 300-mile-per-hour bullet train,
Yeah.
which kind of makes me wonder because like the Hyperloop's only supposed to go 150 miles per hour. Why deal with that when there's already technology out there that allows you to go like 300 miles per hour?
I think the
And it's a
Hyperloop
complete
goes a lot faster than that because that thing's going into like space.
what?
Yeah, that's what the Hyperloop is. It's not the underground thing. The Hyperloop is this giant tube into like up to like a space station or something that literally that would go up into. I'm 99% sure that's what it was, but he didn't talk
No,
about that
I
much.
Well, see, I'm on the Boring Company's website. It says the Hyperloop is an ultra high speed underground public transportation system. Oh, it says 600 miles per hour in a pressurized cabin. So I guess I
Oh,
was.
yeah. Sorry, I think it was one of the ideas was that it could go up into up vertically, but yeah, it would be used with the Boring Company to go underground too. But yeah, it goes really fast.
Yeah, the loop was supposed to go 150 miles per hour, which, even then I'd still try to go and like maglev it. But the loop's supposed to be like able to at some point like easily transition into or not easily, but the infrastructure there to go and make it easier for it to turn into the Hyperloop is what I understand. At least I saw that on the Boring Company. But yeah, I do think that's a very interesting idea. And then he also mentioned like the idea of like having like a magnetic like thing in there, because he mentioned that like magnetic cars. He talked about magnetic cars a lot, like magnetic roads, because like Joe Rogan brought up. He's like, yeah, this isn't a good idea because you're either have to go and like it's got to be really powerful, and
Yeah.
then you're going to attract all sorts of problems from that. If you have like jewelry or something, or if like you're walking near the road, that could be a problem. It'd either like propel it off you or like suck it down. It'd be a lot easier to do it underground because that'd be a more controlled environment.
Yeah.
Which I mean, they already kind of have that technology too, like the bullet trains. I mean, I think that's hell. But like he mentioned that the loop or the hyperloop, I think both of them, he really doesn't like the gas power because like he doesn't want them to have any like exhaust, and like he just wants it to use electricity. But the problem with that is like it's just not very efficient right now unless he has like a power line hooked up to it, which he's not going to be able to. At least not with what he's currently proposing, unless he has like a super battery he hasn't told us about yet. But another
Well,
like if he did try to go with
he did say that, like, I think it was either 200 or 200 kilowatts. I forget the number. Like, a higher capacity battery is possible. It's too expensive.
oh yeah, like you can do like a higher capacity like anything. It's just when you scale things up, it's harder. But like we just don't have the technology yet to go and make it cheap. Because like the technology that we've been using for batteries really hasn't been going up as much as it probably should be. Like I think everyone's still using like lithium ions is like the latest thing in batteries, and those like if you remember those like Galaxy phones from a few years ago, they'd catch on fire.
Oh yeah,
Like
lithium
that's
ion batteries are notorious for catching on fire with all kinds of stuff, and they just suck.
yeah,
They
those
lose their charge after a while. They you have to charge them like my phone. I have to charge it every day. It's only going to get worse, and that's the problem with Tesla and any other electric car is the batteries because they take forever to charge. The charge can last a while as long as you're on level ground. You don't have the AC on. You don't have anything on. So batteries are the problem. And what I like about Elon Musk is that he's created a research facility in Las Vegas that not only produces the batteries but it's also creating. He's researching how to make a better battery, and I think he might do it. I don't know. Battery technology is very complicated because you're trying to store energy in such a small thing, and you need it to power so many things. I mean, we're never going to have to create something better because gas is not the future. It's going to die at some point. We're going to run out of resources, obviously. I mean, use it while we can, but electric is the future. It's just a matter of getting a battery that can hold it.
Well, here's the thing. Like, what if you could figure out like, because I saw a article years ago. It was like, I think Volkswagen or like Audi or one of the. I think it was Audi actually. Well,
Audi?
pretty much the same thing.
It's Audi.
Audi, whatever. That company was. I saw an article a few years ago. And they're talking about like creating diesel from like they use like water and then they'll suck the carbon from the air and like form into hydrocarbons. It's a lot of electricity, but it can store it like potentially more efficiently in a more usable form than like current batteries deal. Something like that, I think there would be a future for like like diesel. It would be synthetic, completely
Mm.
synthetic, created, and like he doesn't like that idea because he thinks it's too old fashioned. But I think that's probably more feasible. Like for a while, like maybe even in the future, we're about to deal with like nuclear, like Mike. I think that might be like the super future, like Jetsons level, like Jetsons tier stuff. But like making gas and then using that instead of batteries, like make diesel from like synthetic diesel, and that it would be carbon neutral at that point because they go and like get the electricity from renewable resources like solar power, and then they could go and change it like into the gasoline and then go and like use that and then just like a carbon neutral cycle.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I could see a lot of like alternative ways to do it. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. But the other thing he talked about, because he's covering cars, rockets, but he also, because this kind of relates to SpaceX, he wants to create an electric plane. And it's not only electric, but it's also has vertical takeoff. And he's done this kind of with his rockets for SpaceX, where they can land vertically and you can reuse them, which makes a lot of sense for him because it saves a shit ton of money. But it's also you get to you don't have to keep building stuff. Like, it saves so much time, and that'd be a lot better, of course, if we can do that with spaceships. And what he wants to do is do that with planes, which would be really cool. It's kind of been done before. I forget what the plane's called that can do that. There is a plane that does it, and I think it's a military plane. I could be wrong, but if he could do it for a commercial plane, that'd be pretty badass. But it's really hard because you need a lot of power to lift it up, and then once you're up in the air, you gotta convert so that you can go horizontally.
Yeah, like they have that right now. That's if you play Call of Duty, had the Harrier jets, and they've had those for a decent bit of years. But like he mentioned, the problem is like it's two completely different things. Like one to go and like take off. You need two different systems: one to take off and one to hover. And you could go and do that, I guess, on a I guess on a commercial scale, it'd be more difficult. Like I don't know how you do it without using jet power. Like if you use I guess when you just take it off, you could go and use like something like a helicopter, like a drone kind of, but you'd have to have like really big blades, and then to go and take off you'd have to use like a really powerful like air compressor and just like shoot out the back. But I see that as being potentially feasible in the future,
Yeah,
but like right now that's still years off. I think they could do better to go in and improve the combustion process. I don't think we're done with fossil fuels as soon as he would like, but that's probably going to be a lot longer because like engines, like they just developed direct injection a few years ago, and that
yeah,
was like a huge thing. That's why you see like Dodge Challengers or whatever that get like 700, 800 horsepower with like the Hellcat and the Demon. Like that's how you're able to do that, is because like they've just made it so much more efficient, and it's also more like fuel efficient, more powerful, and it's just like generally better.
but guess what has a quicker 0 to 60 time? Tesla Roadster.
Well, yeah, that's because they get instant torque, but like once you go over like 60, it really starts to drag.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. That's the thing. But this one, I forget the top speed on the roads. I think they don't know the top speed, or it's like limited or something. But it has a much better top speed than past Teslas, and I think that's going to be the car that makes electric serious in terms of supercars and hypercars. It's going to make people take it very seriously. I can't wait till that thing comes out. Uh,
Well, they're just not as fun though. That's the thing. If you're gonna
Have
spend
you
like,
driven one? Have you
if you're
driven
gonna,
one?
I've driven an automatic car before, and that's like it's the same thing. You just push the gas pedal. You don't feel in tune with the car. It's all electric. Like I don't even
Yes,
like
but
it.
you need to
Like even
drive
Elon Musk.
an electric car to see how awesome it
Why
is.
why does Elon Musk still have an E-type?
Because he says there's something that's nice about having that sort of feel, and I agree.
Mechanic, yeah, yeah, the mechanical feel of being in tune with the engine. He even agrees with that. The guy who makes Tesla, if it was so great, then that'd be the only car you'd ever have.
Well, yes, but I agree with what he says too, and I felt that too. But my point is that electric is on paper better. Emotionally, you're gonna want that sort of gas power. Like, look, I still want my nice V12 rumble going when I hit the accelerator and go really fast. I love that. As a daily driver, electric's the way to go. And if you want a really fun, fast car, there's a lot of people that are gonna love electric. It's just different strokes for different folks, but at the same time, electric is still really great. It really is great.
Well, have you dealt with like the charging times?
That's the problem with it. I've acknowledged that's the biggest problem is that with like I just said, like charging is literally the biggest problem with batteries. Is the battery. The battery's a limiting factor, and the main problem with the batteries is charging. Other than that, it's
Well,
awesome.
well, yeah, but like that's the big issue though, because like I live in an apartment complex. I'm not going to be able to go and bring a power cord out to my car. Like you have to be a homeowner, like or live in like a super like hipster place that has their own like garage or like a carport where you can go and charge it. Like
Well,
that's the thing.
well, that's what I'm saying. The world is when electric cars happen, the whole world's going to change and you're already seeing it like in California. there's a lot of charging stations. There's a lot of Tesla charging stations too. Those supercharging stations, which will charge your battery to 80% in 30 minutes. Those are going to be, those are going to be replacing gas stations. And like I said, electric cars are going to disrupt the market. They're going to change everything. It's going to be slow for a while, and at some point, it's going to really pick up when the price goes down, when the batteries charge quicker, and they're going to take over. It's going to happen within our lifetimes, and it's not ideal now. Obviously, it's not ideal unless you live in California. Then it's actually kind of feasible. But other than that, it's not ideal, but it will be very soon.
Man, I don't know if it's very soon because that's going to be complete just like everywhere, and then like apartment complexes, like if you build a charging station, that's one thing, but to go and charge at home, which is what they're meant for, like you're not supposed to
Not
like
really. Not well. Yes,
solely
but not for some people. Like if you live in an apartment, you'll just go to a charging station like you go to a gas station.
well, yeah, but the gas station doesn't take like hours to charge. You're not supposed to use a super. My knowledge, like I was told it was bad for the batteries to be constantly like supercharge it. So like,
Yes. That again, the batteries are the problem. Like it's like they even tell you not to even charge it to 100%, to only charge it to 80% because that's better for the batteries. They tell you, yeah, not to use the superchargers all the time because that's bad for the batteries. That's the problem is those batteries. That's literally the only problem. Everything else is awesome except the batteries.
no, there's other problems too. Like you get into. I saw an article today like about people hacking like Model 3s, like
They hacked the Jeep
wire electric.
Cherokee. Remember that infamous Wired story where they hacked the Jeep Cherokee? That was a gas powered car.
Yeah. I think that's bad. Well, that's because they do all this other stuff, but it's just easier and easier. I think that's the problem with cars in general today. Like I don't. That's why I would never buy a car too that has like a keyless ignition or like the key fobs, because that just enables a hacker to break into your car and enables you to get into situations like you lose your keys while you're driving. Like, how about that be ends up like somehow falling out of the car, you're at the drive-through, and you're not noticing things, and you accidentally drop it out. You're eating a milkshake, and then
Well,
boom.
anybody does that, that's not the way you're supposed to use keyless. You're supposed to basically just put it in your pocket and leave it in your pocket.
Yeah, but what if it gets lost in your car and you can't find it? Like you have your key in your pocket. Cause I've had like my wallet and it fell out of my, and I was able to go and find it. But like if it was my key to my car, and then like my car wouldn't be able to lock right now, being locked out of my car over like a
No,
keyless
you can't
ignition.
get locked out. You can't get locked out. If you have
Or
the
then
key
other
left in the car, you have to physically take it out to lock it. And when you lock it, you can use the key or you can use the door handle to lock it. Or in some cars, if you walk away, it'll lock it. But you can't really lock the
yeah.
key in. Like, and if you do, like for a Tesla, you can just open up the app on your phone and lock it.
Oh, yeah, then that's a whole another issue when you have the phone in there. Like the keyless fob, that's one thing, but with like the phone, that enables like a lot more hackers to be able to get access to it. And that was how like the one was stolen, I believe. Like one of the Model 3, someone like did something with the phone, and it was a dealer model, and they were the phone hackers are getting more and more like sophisticated.
Yeah.
Like people can go and steal your car wirelessly, and then especially if they end up having it so you can go, which is what he's going to want to do, like driverless cars,
Hmm.
and like remotely hack the car and then drive it to your house. Or like you hack into there using the phone and then have it like drive like while you're still in the car, and then he like drives you into an alley, and then you get like mugged or like God forbid
I mean,
murdered
that's
or
a pretty
something.
damn sophisticated robber. If they're just trying to nab a few dollars off you, they're probably not going to know how to hack.
Well, no, like if you're gonna hack into a Tesla, you probably have a decent bit of like if you own a Tesla, you probably have a decent bit of money in general. But like they're gonna bring you over there. Like let's say because Teslas are very right now. The cheapest one, the Model 3, I think is like I think close to 40 grand.
Well, it
If I'm not
starts
mistaken.
at 30. I think it's 30 or 35, but it starts in the 30s.
Well, yeah, but they've been having problems. Like, I don't think anyone's gotten one that was like less than 60 grand because of the way it was like done. Where if you bought the more expensive model, it would end up like bumping you up in line. So like I don't think anyone's really gotten the real cheapo ones yet.
I know, but I'm
And
just
even then
saying
they're
it
being
does start at 30, 35. Like, and you have to buy up, spend more to get bigger batteries. So it's like you are inevitably going to spend more.
yeah, but like it's just like I feel like the phone is a little bit too much with it. Like the phone fob. I don't like that.
People put their credit cards on phones now. I mean, and I haven't, at least not yet, heard of any serious cases of hacking. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. It definitely will. But I'm just saying, I think it's a little, I think people are a little either too paranoid or too fearful of it. Because I'm a very paranoid person. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I don't. I you know, yeah, there are problems where things are going to get hacked, but I don't think it's going to be quite as big if as long as you keep your security done well.
Like people don't, and like
That's the
you can get the
problem.
you get like a rootkit on your phone. So like the NSA has this stuff, and we've had stuff like last year, like where they've started releasing NSA like hacking tools onto the internet, and that's how like WannaCry became a big deal. And you have like one of those happen, and boom, like you're out of your car. Like it's one thing if you lose, like if someone tries to steal money because banks they generally are able to go and refund you your money and change your password or whatever, maybe you're out a little bit of money. But if you lose your like transportation, that's a lot more of a big deal. And they can go and like remotely. I'm pretty sure I saw something like they can find your car on there. Like you can find your car using an app.
Oh yeah.
Like if I understand with the Tesla,
Well,
and
I
then they
think you
can
can do that
find where
with
to go and
any
steal your
car
car.
today, any modern car, because all these cars are hooked up to either the cell tower or something. It's just going to be a case of any car. It's not exclusively Tesla's problem.
And I agree with that in general. Like, there's when I buy a car, I'm not gonna like if there's any way I can, it's not gonna have like any OnStar or anything. So I know like they've had cases where the government's been able to go and turn off the car remotely using OnStar
I've
and
heard
like
that.
track you.
I don't think GM even
It's just
offers OnStar anymore. I don't think, or do they? I can't remember. I know my.
well, they might have their own version.
Well, no, yeah, GM is what does OnStar, but yeah, I'd worry about that too. But you're not going to be able to avoid a lot of these things with new cars because all new cars come with some sort of GPS, one way or another. So somebody's going to be able to track you. It's
Like why do they need GPS? Everyone's got like phones these days.
so they'll
Like
track
you
your phone now.
I mean they've already been tracking your phone. Like do you really need to track the car
Yeah,
too?
I know that's my point, which is yeah, it's a bit redundant, and that's why I don't even understand why GPS is offered in cars anymore. That's why I do like when they have like Apple CarPlay or I don't even know what the Android version is, but where like you plug in your phone syncs up and it shows all the shit on the screen of the car, but it's from your phone. That I really like that, but yeah, I mean the thing is we are all carrying a tracking device on us all the time. So privacy is dead. It's just let's not make it even worse now is the way I see it. But back onto the Elon.
Well,
Um,
yeah, that was his whole thing against like AI, but then like he's like against like the dangers of AI and like all this like invasiveness, and then he goes and he has like cars that are like completely autonomous. It's like, what's he doing with that?
well, I think what he's talking about with AI is a bit more complex than autonomous car. Autonomous car is going to actually save lives. There's going to be far less car crashes. There's because there's no human error. It's going to be a lot more safer to drive. But with AI, that can be used as a weapon. And it can be made with an autonomous car, but with the AI he's talking about is much more what the military is going to be developing, what our government isn't exactly going to be smart about. He understands this shit. He's been warning them about for years. But the government's stupid. They're out of touch and a bunch of old farts that just don't understand any of this stuff. And when he tells them about it, they just kind of shrug it off and think, oh, that's not a problem. He's just, a crazy billionaire just saying shit. But he's 100% right on AI. Because one of the things he talks about that I don't think people realize is whenever like you Google something or Bing something or Yahoo something or whatever, you're feeding the AI. that's could bring the downfall of humans, because these companies are using that information to see what people are searching for, and generating results based on that. Like when you Google when did Winston Churchill die, it will bring up a little card that says the exact date. You don't have to check a website anymore. That's AI. And when you're doing those security things to say that you're not a robot, and you're clicking the pictures of like a stop sign, where it says click all the pictures that contain a stop sign, you're feeding AI that programs autonomous cars to make them, recognize objects. So we're all guinea pigs, we're all test subjects, and we just don't even realize it, or don't care, or maybe if we do, we don't mind it. But AI is, I've gotten a little red pilled on that over the past few years, but it's going to be, it is the biggest issue of the 21st century, because we're creating something that will be smarter than us, that will be able to program itself, be its own species. And it will just outsmart us at every turn. And what are we going to do about that? Are we going to destroy it, or are we going to merge with it? Because we probably won't be able to destroy it. If we merge with it, then we're not going to be human anymore. We're going to be like part cyborg, have like parts of our body that are improving ourselves, but we're going to become an AI.
He talked about like this new thing he wants to develop called like the neural link. He couldn't really give too much details on it, but it's going to be like some incredible like human integration with like it's like cyborg stuff he's like talking about, and it's like I don't know how I feel about that because like he's warning against AI, but also offering like cyborg technology at the same time, which will advance the AI on. I mean, he has like kind of a nuanced look at it, but like still, this is really disturbing. And AI too. They had that. You can see it happening in our own lives. Like you can go and look at them like banning hate speech or whatever they want to call hate speech on Facebook based off algorithms. You had the stuff with Candid, which we talked about in another video, and that's a whole topic on itself within the skeptic community. But like, it's just everywhere. There's like an AI now, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we really need any more of that. Like the AI is going to be driving your car. The AI is like wakes you up. You have these Google Homes, and people pay hundreds of dollars to have like people listening to every word that you say in your house.
Yeah.
Like I can't understand. Like I don't understand the mindset of someone who buys like a Google Home. And then like Roomba, they'll take pictures, like it'll scan your house, and that's why they're as cheap as they are. Like sell them. Like it'll sell like your house layout and stuff online
Jesus.
to like advertisers. There's so much things, and they even have a there's like a microwave or like a convection oven, and it's like hooked up to the internet, and they'll like you put the food in there, and they'll like determine how long to go cook in the convection oven based on like what food you're cooking. It scans the freaking food in your oven, and they sell it. It was like an expensive one too. I saw an advertisement for it, and I was like, why would I want to have this in my house? Like, why
Yeah.
do I need to go and sell? Why do you sell this information? Like, and charge me like $600 for a freaking convection oven. It was ridiculous. Like, and this is expensive. This is top of the line. Like, I'd rather pay money to not have these features. I keep using my old convection oven. I don't need no like smart convection oven. I'll go and send my information to some data warehouse in the middle of the desert. Like, why do I want this?
Yeah, it gets a bit too far in certain areas, like with a freaking oven. But I understand where Elon's going with the neuro system and that cyborg shit. Because AI can be used for good. I don't want to dismiss that. Because it definitely can be. For people that have disabilities, for people that lose limbs, for people that want to improve themselves in some way. It can be used for very good things. It can save a lot of lives. It can do, like, an example of AI is the robots that work in factories that are, they can paint a car way more accurately and consistently than any human could ever do it. The problem is when it gets out of hand. And like he mentions, and I agree with him on this, is that it inevitably will. There'll be some sort of disaster, there'll be outcry, and then regulations, and then stuff will happen. But it might be too late. And that's what he's trying to do, is put this stuff in place before it's too late. You can, once that genie comes out of the bottle, once you get to singularity, which is the point that AI is AI, where it becomes its own thing, is the point of no return, and that's could be when we're that's going to happen in our lifetime. It's probably going to happen. Yeah, I've seen some things where scientists guess it'll be around like 2040, 2050. That's a pretty reasonable estimate. I think it might be a little longer. I don't know, but technology is moving really fast, and
Well,
I don't. I really the only thing that could really stop an AI is like if it's running on lithium ion batteries and the batteries fuck up.
well, the thing is too is like people can manipulate AI. Like you saw what happened to Tay, and people
Yeah.
there's a for it. It's like destructive. Like you can feed it wrong information. Like you see a stop sign, and then if like enough people, like if they make another AI or like a program, they'll go and say the stop sign's really a yield sign. Someone does that enough, and your Tesla ends up like running a stoplight and ends up killing like a bunch of people because it doesn't see that stop sign. Like you can have people manipulate that, and like Tay was humorous, but like when you start making everything into AI, it's gonna be a terrible thing. It's like when they started to make everything into the internet, and now you have to worry about people hacking into the water mains and opening up like nuclear weapons, like to be launched. It's just I don't think we as humans really should do that. I think that's going to be a step too far, and I think that might ultimately lead to the end of humanity. Yeah, they can help people out, but at what cost? It's not even just like our freedom, which it absolutely will be used like to limit our freedom. You're already seeing like freedoms back in the day, like you had so much more freedoms, like you could go and do things and you don't have to worry about people recording you. Now we have drones, and they didn't track your internet history because there's no internet. Like there's so much things you could get away with, and you didn't have to think about. Like privacy was a right back then, and it was just like everyone assumed you had it. But now it's like, what is privacy? They have companies looking through everything you do on the internet. They'll like listen to your voice. It's just gone so far. Like we don't have privacy anymore. Like our definition of privacy has changed. Like what are we gonna do? Like I know he mentioned this too. Like in the whole thing, it's like, yeah, like what do people have to go? And I think it was either him or Joe Rogan. It's just like our definitions of privacy are going to have to like radically alter when we
Yeah.
like get this sort of like level of AI, and it's true. It's very true, and it's very deep because like what you consider privacy today like won't exist when you have like robot maids and stuff. They'll see you in the shower. You have like robotic shower head out there, and it can go and like sense that you want to turn off the shower without you actually wanting to turn off the shower. It could like adjust the temperature. Like they haven't really made this yet because it's too intrusive, but maybe 10 years down the line, like they already have like computer access toilets that can be hacked. Like I don't know why you need to hook up your toilet to the internet, but I guess if you left a dookie in there and you forgot to flush, you don't want the house to smell like shit. You can just go and have it flush on your phone, and we're gonna start to see problems. And I think it's not even just the AI; it's the internet and everything. It's everything has to be super electronic. Like God forbid we have a big solar flare. Like back in the day, we needed carburetors. You wouldn't have to go. If that happened, so what? Your car's carbureted. You just had to go and like start back up. It wasn't a big deal. But nowadays, like you won't be able to go drive anywhere. They don't really have backup vehicles, to my knowledge, that would be able to go and function in those areas. Like not, preppers might have those. But I think we're going to see a big rise in the prepper movement. When you
Yes.
start seeing more of this, and I don't blame them. If I had the money, that's exactly what I'd be doing, because people are becoming super reliant on these technologies and these things like just robots, like AI and electricity, like for everything. And if they went without electricity, like they shut down school. Like we had to go home from school when they had no electricity there. 20 years ago, like not 20 years ago, like 50 years ago, no one would care. They just had to go and turn on the whatever, like the gas lights.
Oh, are we
But yeah,
gaslighting?
I hate that word. I do a video on that too. But like, it's we've become so like reliant on things that are so far removed from our natural like evolutionary environment that like I just if something ever happens, we're gonna be like at some point, everyone wants to be a cyborg, and if they lose electricity, they're gonna die. Your arm, you won't be able to go and use your arm because that's like robotic implants, and the solar flare disabled it. Or like heaven forbid we had like EMPs going off and they'll be
Mm.
weaponized, and that'll just kill millions of people. It's like, why do we really need this? Like, do we just
Inevitably
need to
we
go?
are going to say this is the thing that I think Elon makes a great point of, is that we all keep talking about, like, oh, we shouldn't do this, do we really need to go as far? It doesn't matter, because it's going to happen anyway, because there's an incentive, in humans, just to be better than the other guy, to be superior, and that's what's going to happen. And the first place you're probably going to see is through military weaponization of AI, in terms of, like, a dangerous scenario. So the military's gonna weaponize it, because there's going to be nothing more powerful than that. Somebody's gonna get killed, and there's gonna be some talk about that. But somebody's gonna get killed by. I mean, there already was somebody killed by an autonomous car, but that's gonna happen again. I mean, it's still going to save more lives than it kills, but what happens when it gets weaponized and hacked and whatever to do bad things? That's the dangerous part, because we as humans can't stop it unless we then use an AI against it. That's the problem. And when you have AI that's going to, at some point, look exactly like a human, like a person, in Blade Runner they call them replicants, in Westworld they're called hosts, those sort of things, where it looks like a human, it sounds like a human, it's human, but you can't tell. You literally can't tell. That's gonna be the freaky days, is when you can't tell. But in terms of also not being, I mean, we could talk about AI forever, but it's a perfect segue to something else you can't tell, which is the simulation theory. Not to preface this, I am somebody that is an atheist. I don't believe in a God. I think it's bullshit. I don't believe in any higher power. I thought the simulation theory is bullshit until I started hearing him and Scott Adams too talk about it. And to be honest, I think there's a way higher chance that we are in a simulation than a God created us. Because when he explains it very well, which is, let's first consider that if we're in a simulation, we cannot distinguish between reality and the simulation. It's indistinguishable, because the simulation is reality. And if we create a simulation that is a simulation of reality, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between reality and the simulation when you go into that simulation. So there's that to keep in mind, which is basically, if you're in a simulation, you can't tell that you're in one. And on top of that, let's consider the technological advances in video games over just the past few years in terms of the graphics. They look amazing. I mean, are they lifelike? No, but they're pretty damn good. You can obviously tell what is and isn't a video game, but as we're seeing in some movies like Star Wars Rogue One, and uh, the Planet of the Apes movies, and Blade Runner 2049, and few other movies I'm forgetting, but we've been able to recreate people and animals to a very believable point. I mean, it's not the case with Rogue One. Admiral Tarkin was not believable at all, but Rachel in Blade Runner 2049 was very believable. And the apes in Planet of the Apes are very believable. I mean, we're getting to a point where we can create our own simulations, and if we can create it, then that means we could be in one. That's how fucking crazy, technology's getting.
Yeah, like I mean, this was like back from the Matrix. They talked about this as well. That was like my
Yep.
first real introduction to that. And like, I don't know, like a simulation theory. I guess that could happen, but then like, why would history have like gone the way it's gone? Like, why would they have suffering in like the simulation?
Why wouldn't they?
I don't know what. Like, if I was in a simulation, it'd be like it'd be like perfect harmony. It'd be like angelic. There'd be like magic and stuff. That's what I would do in a simulation. And like, why are we limited to only like 5 or 6 cents, or like simulation? I'd want there to be like 100 senses if I would be designing it. Like you, but I guess there'd be sensory overload. Like I would do things a lot differently in a simulation. Dreaming, I guess, would be kind of like you could do weird things in there. But it's an interesting concept, and I don't think we are in a simulation theory, but I think that it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's one of those things where how can you really prove that you're not in a simulation?
Exactly. That's what's
It's
tricky.
just like a religion. Yeah, it's just like a religion. You can say you could be in a simulation, but you can't see it.
Yeah, but
With
here there's
any
a big difference between the two, which is, we cannot prove there is or isn't a God, but we cannot create a God. We can, and very soon we're going to be. I mean, look at what VR is doing, and look at what video games are. We can create a simulation. We will be able to at some point.
Yeah, that just doesn't mean that we are in a
Yeah, it doesn't
simulation.
mean we're
Like
in
who
one.
created the simulation? Like
It,
who created the simulation out there?
and it could be another set of humans. It could be another species. I don't know. But the point of it is that it's possible to. If it's possible to create one, we could be in one. It's not.
Could be.
We don't know if it's possible that there is a god, but we know that it's possible to create a simulation.
Yeah, we can. I mean, we could always create simulations. It just won't be that like realistic. Like like
No,
back in
it
the
will
day,
be. Look
you'd
at
have.
how technology is going in video games. It's getting
Yeah,
more
like
realistic every day.
yeah, it could be a simulation, but it could be. We still have no way to go and prove that we are or are not in a simulation. It would be kind of
Exactly.
impossible to. Because you could always say the technology's like more important or it's like more better in the future. Like like he even mentioned like the technology from like today's day would be called magic like 100 years ago, and I think that's pretty or like 500 years ago. Like, good lord, can you imagine like the people in the Middle Ages just like thinking of this stuff? Like, that even their like concept of magic would be like so far like that wouldn't even be like a concept of magic like
Mm.
electricity. Like they couldn't even think of that like 500 years ago, or, like 1,000. Like cars, like video.
Phones, screens.
Yeah, it's just like so far and away. Like we've gotten just so much more advanced. Like to the world where we can go get like food delivered to us with an app on our phones and work from home and like farm and stuff or like go to a physical bakery. Like we have prepared food like in a freezer. We have a freezer, like food refrigeration. Just like think about like how far. This how crazy it is. We fly. We go into space. We have like missiles that are like missile size, but they can make an explosion that's so huge it'll destroy an entire city.
Yeah.
Like dragons don't have anything on that.
Get on my level, dragons. But yeah,
Like they
that's a
couldn't even.
good point, which is that like things we have today, people 500 years ago could never imagine, and that's where we look at what we have today. And let's skip 500 years into the future. We can't even conceive what they'll have.
Yeah, like I can't even conceive like 20 years, like 50 years in the future. That's good lord. It could be like we could end up reaching like a roadblock at some point. Due to physical resources on the planet, due to running out of like rare earth elements, due to whatever. But if we didn't have that and it keeps advancing at the rate it currently is, it could be sky high. But the thing is, like when you think about reaching some roadblocks, like look back in like the early 2000s, look at like computer specs. Like every other year, like your memory would double. Like you went from like kilobytes of memories to megabytes, and now we're kind of stuck at gigabytes. Like unless you get like a server farm, you're not going to have like terabytes of RAM. Like our speeds on the computers are like several like maybe 4 or 5, 6 gigahertz. They aren't really going any higher. Like we've made microchips so small that if they get any smaller, they're going to get into like the molecular level, and they physically can't get any smaller than that because the
Mm.
molecules will be too big. Like we're gonna hit some roadblocks, and the clouds kind of fought against that because instead of having um, like on your computer, you just offshore to like some giant like just miles of just servers calculating things, but they want to use that. So I think there'll be some roadblocks, and I don't think it's going to advance like at this rate forever. It could go faster, but I doubt it. Like unless we like maybe quantum computing, there might be something in there, but that seems like more or less a meme at this point.
Well, I
Like
think
it's a
isn't it
buzzword.
possible? Isn't it possible? And they are like developing it right now.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like it could be huge. It could also just be like a big nothing burger. I don't know if it's as like big as they say it's going to be. It's they're like, oh, we'll make all the encryption useless and the internet will be completely hackable and all this other stuff. And like, I don't know. It'll probably just be like the next year you buy a better computer again. It'll probably be like the early 2000s for another like 10 years. And then what do you do after quantum computers? Like they're going to have to innovate somehow like after that because that's already going to be like pretty legit. Really get much better than that,
Well, the
to
limit
my
will be
knowledge.
whenever when stuff's instantaneous. I mean, that's really your limit. But I can definitely like. I think I've heard talks that like silicon that's in computers and whatnot will be replaced by some other material, and that's where you hear talks like quantum computing and other stuff. I think that's gonna happen definitely, like probably somewhat soon, like within like 10, 20 years.
Well, I think the problem with quantum computing is you have to like freeze it to close to absolute zero
Oh
for
wow.
like for it to like work. Like that's been the limiting factor because it had to go so freaking cold that the only people who'd really be able to go and afford those are like mega corporations and governments.
Mm,
And even then, like the quantum computers aren't very like efficient because like
mm,
what they do is they can like solve like algorithms because like how these things work, how computers work and like encryption, they involve like prime numbers and like factoring them and defactoring or whatever they call it, and like it's really easy to go and put in one way but really hard to go and like find out the factors. Like I had to go and do this in classes before, like not personally but like we conceptually talked about. I think we may have had to do it like once or twice on like a very small scale, but computers do this with like
mm.
astronomically large numbers. And I just have no idea. Like, but just look at the computers though. Like, they're kind of stuck. Like i7s are still like decent computers, and I've like my computer is probably like 5, 6 years old. Like that would be completely unimaginable for it to be like a decent computer in the early 2000s when like you buy a computer 1 year and then 2 to 4 years later it's completely like a turd box.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very fascinating. Because, I mean, people, especially our age, forget that computers are still technically, like at a consumer level, a very new thing. Like, computers didn't become such a consumer thing till late 80s, early, 90s. And, it's been, like, I think the military's had them since, like, the 60s. I could be wrong on that. But in terms of like
Yeah.
a consumer level, like we've only had them for a short period of time. And phones, smartphones, really didn't start till the iPhone came out in 2007. It's only been over 10 years, and yet smartphones have. I mean, the first iPhone didn't even have an app store in it. It was a small screen. It was kind of not really slow, but like compared to what we have today, it was slow and it was thick. It didn't hold a lot, but now I can have. I think the latest iPhone has like fucking half a terabyte in it now. Like Jesus Christ. Well, I mean, it's amazing. People gotta step back for a second and just realize how awesome, all this technology that we have is. That's why I think Elon Musk is so beloved by his fans. Is that like he's the embodiment of just the awesomeness of technology and human advancement, and he's basically like the next, like people. I love Steve Jobs. A lot of people love Steve Jobs because of what he did for computers and phones and whatnot. Of course, the people that worked for him did a lot of the work too. Let's keep in mind, but as a figurehead, like he was a figurehead of that. Elon Musk is kind of that next big thing, and at a even grander scale with cars and spaceships and now planes and tunnels, and it's he's gonna definitely be somebody that's gonna go down the history books as a very important innovator and inventor. It's just I'm really interested to see what he does, and I encourage everybody to check out that interview. Like, don't listen to what the media's saying. Just watch the whole interview. It's an interesting listen or watch, depending on what platform you're viewing it on. But he's not. You got he. Well, people think this guy should run for president. I say no fucking way because he has no charisma. He's really just a very kind of nerdy but cool.
Like a mad scientist.
Yeah, he's like a mad scientist that's just very calm. He speaks in very short sentences. He's not very good socializing. He's very, smart. He's obviously very nerdy and sort of into this sort of shit. But you'll understand when you see him talk. But like, he really is just very quiet, socially inept, nerdy. But he still has this sort of fun in him. Like he talked about this with his Teslas, and I've actually seen it before where you can make the Model X dance in a way. When you do like press these buttons, it turns on this stuff that plays a Trans-Siberian Orchestra music. Uh, for Christmas that time it was came out, like it probably a Christmas song. I don't know if it plays the same song, but the doors will move up and down, the lights will flash, do all kinds of stuff to the music. Like it's totally unnecessary features, but it's sort of that that's what gives it character. That's what gives it that spunk. It tells like there's somebody that's making this thing that's just that really just has a love and a passion for fun, and it just geeks out over this stuff, and they just have to do it. They can't resist. That kind of sums up Elon Musk.
Yeah, I think he's like a visionary in that sort of respect. He has he has these very interesting ideas. I don't know how realistic some of them are.
Yeah,
Like at least with the current technology, I think that's what's really limiting him, and that's why he's like trying to create his own like things. Like he was talking about building his own like device, so go and excavate the ground so he can go and like build these tunnels.
yeah.
That's great, but like thankfully he's not making the government do that, so I give him a lot of respect for that. He's very private industry, at least for what it seems. But like, I don't know. He's an interesting person. The way the media just crucified him over this, like I wasn't really a big fan of him before this. I'm still not really like I respect him. I think that what the media are doing to him is like what the media is doing to Trump. Like he did this beautiful interview, different ideas, and like really amazing stuff. But then they get like one clip of him smoking weed, and they completely demonize him. The same media who argues for marijuana legalization, mind you, and like the same like CNN,
Yeah.
like NBC, those sort of talking heads. And it really makes you see that like the media is just corrupt. Like they're not in the media anymore. They're just propaganda stations on the television or on the internet. And that's the one thing that like him and Trump, they have some things like I know they have their disagreements, but like at least they agree with the media, like about the media being this like evil sort of like entity out there that just goes and spins because that's exactly what they did to him, and they'll do to anybody who's against the corporate establishment. 'Cause he's really like, what people call John McCain a maverick. He's not. But Elon Musk is an actual maverick. That's
Yes.
why everyone hates him.
But why is the media just turned on him recently? It's really bizarre because he used to kind of be like the darling of the left. The left like loved Elon Musk. They loved him, because they thought, oh, he's very green and he's creating all this cool shit. And the media liked him because he is kind of just it makes for good stories, and he's just interesting with all the stuff he's doing. But he does something which they like, which is smoke weed. And he didn't really smoke it. He didn't inhale. He just kind of puffs it. And they crucify for him. Like Vice had that headline that said like, "Yo, Elon Musk just made weed uncool." I'm like, why? What happened? Why do you guys hate him all of a sudden? Is it because he was talking shit on the media a few months ago when he sent those tweets out saying, he was basically just shitting on the media. I don't want to misquote him, but I just don't understand it. Why was this their turning point? Was it just an excuse to turn on him? And then why are they turning on him? I just don't get it.
Well, I think like his stuff with like the Tesla, the Model 3, I know that he's had a lot of issues with that, like actually producing it. Like he's a great visionary, like a great like innovator. He'll create like a really cool concept. Like he's probably better off making concept cars than actual cars, like according to like everything that's going down to like Model 3. At least they've had like a lot of problems with production and the
Yeah.
pricing and all this other stuff. And I think maybe the investors, maybe they were having problems with that. And then like I didn't he like work with Trump at some point?
Yeah,
Maybe they're just mad
he
about
was
that.
on the advisory board, and he really does that out just self interest. And when I mean self, I mean the interest of his company. He wants a seat at the table to get subsidies and get stuff for his company, which I don't blame him for at all. I mean that's why all those CEOs there. If I was a CEO, I'd do the same thing. He just got a little butthurt over the Paris Climate Accord when Trump pulled out of it, and he dropped off the advisory board, which I really don't understand why he did that because he knows climate accord's a big scam. It doesn't do anything to stop global warming or help the planet. Um, but I
Well,
still love Elon Musk. I've loved him before any of this stuff. I've really liked it. I just don't understand the big crucifixion of him for smoking weed. I mean, I just don't
well,
get why the left has turned on him. It just doesn't make any sense.
well, the climate accord, I can see why he supports that because that's directly in line with his like pretty much full out like his whole business model is like electric everything. Like he wants to make an electric earth mover instead of having it like be using diesel power. He wants electric cars. He wants electric aircraft. So of course he's gonna want that because like the climate accord, because that'll incentivize him and give him like it'll hurt the competition. So there's a big self-serving reason. Not that he's necessarily like some sort of corrupt person. He's just doing what's in his own best interest with that. But I don't know. I think that they're probably just mad at him because he said things about the media before, and that he was on the council to begin with. He didn't automatically just disassociate with that.
Yeah, I guess so. It's still weird. And I think also he's gotten to a point. Like I think he's always had maybe this in his personality, but I think it just happens when you have money. He really just doesn't give a shit. Like he doesn't give a fuck now. He has.
But
I think I don't know who said this, but there's you have fuck you money, but you also have fuck me money, and I think he's getting to that point where he has fuck me money, where he really doesn't give a fuck. Just like, yeah, I'm gonna just talk about my company going private on Twitter. Fuck it. Let's see what
well,
happens.
well, well. The thing is, like, I think I actually know why the media hates him because he was donating to I think the Republican parties.
Oh
Like, I think
yes. Yeah, they found out he
that's
gave
why
some
they hate him.
donations to some Republican candidates, which is not out of the realm of like people doing that. And like for him, it makes sense because if somebody's gonna help him out, he's gonna support him. But yeah, that's true. That came out recently.
Yeah, that's probably exactly why they hate him so much. But yeah, anyways, any other interesting bits in there that we didn't cover?
No, I think that's everything. It's just I'm glad. One last thing I'll mention is I'm glad Elon Musk went on to alternative media. That's the one big thing I don't think anybody's talking about. Like, that's probably the biggest name Joe Rogan's ever gotten. I know he's had a lot of big names like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Alex Jones, Ted Nugent, and a bunch of other names. But like in terms of like a mega billionaire, like imagine having like if he had Steve Jobs on the podcast, like that'd be groundbreaking and amazing. If he had Trump on the podcast, that'd be awesome. But I hope that's what Elon. Like I know Elon does because he hates the media, and I remember hearing that he was in talks to Joe Rogan. I was like, that'd be great. But supporting alternative media by going on it with with like somebody like him, that's what we need more of. We like next thing would be like for Trump to go on Joe Rogan. That'd be awesome. I mean, that's what we gotta do. We gotta keep doing this because it's so much better. I know it's a very long interview, but it's so much better than watching anything on CNN or Fox interview him because you get a lot out of it. Joe's asking the questions you would ask, and he's a very normal sort of guy that's coming out with just a blunt, average Joe perspective.
Oh, I agree. And the one thing about him too, like people like Mark Zuckerberg and all these other big tech giants, I think the only person who could really like help alt tech, break out of its infancy, like actually become like mainstream, would be someone like Musk, because he could make his own social media company, and I think like there's a chance he might actually do that. He's probably pissed off what the media is doing to him, and that would be our like major hope. That would be what we need. We need our own like sort of Mark Zuckerberg, and I think Elon Musk would probably be the guy to fit that. I don't know if he's mentioned that before, but he has the money to be able to fund that
Oh, if he
and
did
the
that, it'd be
platform.
awesome.
Yeah, I gain like see that like I would gain a lot more respect if he did that because he's done some silly things in the past, in my opinion. But like this, that would make up way more than that. I'd be completely on board with him.
Well, because the great thing about him doing it is with his name recognition, he could actually get a lot of people on the platform. Like, it wouldn't just be right wing people, it would be big names from all sides of everything. Like, you could get Beyonce and Kanye and Trump and all these people on it. Like, that would be awesome if he could do that. I hope he does. He would have to find a way to, differentiate from all these other social media platforms, and I think he could do it. But that'd be so cool if he did that.
Absolutely. But anyways, yeah, I think he's a very interesting character. Elon Musk completely defamed by the media. Very sad story, but hopefully we'll hear some more good things from him hopefully people start waking up to the fake news that goes around all of us and the propaganda from the left wing outlets and realize that, like just after this, I think a lot of people have about the truth about the media, about how you can't trust it, about how they'll demonize anyone who goes against their political narrative. It'd be black or like like any or like woman who's a Republican. They'll definitely go after you if it's because I think the thing was the reason they hate him so much is because he said he was like a socialist at some point. But like if you actually listen to his interview, he goes into that a little bit. He talks about like universal basic income, which is a whole nother thing. But like he's just not a very political guy, and they want him to be anti-Trump. If he was anti-Trump, they'd support him 110%. I mean, he isn't a very big fan of Trump, to my knowledge, but like he doesn't outright like slander him like all these other celebrities do, and I think that's you know part of one of the reasons why they just hate him so much.
But he also says that he like loves capitalism, and he kind of has to. But it was because in that tweet he basically says he's a socialist and a capitalist. I don't remember what he said, but that probably triggered a lot of people on the left. But I think he likes Trump a lot more than he puts on. And when you read his Wikipedia page, like he says positive things about Republicans and Democrats, so he's kind of. I imagine he's like a moderate, like conservative. It's just he doesn't really want to admit to it. He could even be a moderate leftist. I just think, actually, the best way to put it, I think, is that he's probably a centrist, but he definitely hates SJWs. If you want to get a sense of it, he's a very. I think he's more capitalist than people think he is. I think he likes Trump more than he lets on. Because as a business person, he's got to respect Trump. He's got to understand him a bit. I think there's a lot more that in general that he just doesn't tell us about him and his true self. But he's still very honest. He's still very good-hearted, I think, and that's why I like him. And that's why even Alex Jones will talk about that. He's like Elon Musk is a great man. All that stuff he'll say, and it's I really do think he is doing things for the better, especially when you hear his views on AI. I think he's got a good heart in him.
I agree. You just can't be a political moderate anymore. You have to choose a side.
Yeah.
You're either for us or against us, in the words of George Bush.
Yeah, exactly.